Well, thought today was a good time to get together, obviously with the roster kind of being as set as a roster can be in today's world. Very, very excited about the three spring editions of Morris, Josiah, and Mac. I think obviously with Morris and Josiah, we addressed needs. We said over and over and over again that we needed to get bigger, we needed to get stronger. That will happen with maturity of our young team in the weight room, but we also needed to recruit to it, and we did that. So we filled some needs, and we're excited, very excited. I mean, I think when we first got here, adding 8 guys off of Zooms was not even a little bit ideal, and trying to build a foundation was challenging. It's always going to be challenging when you take over the situation we took over, but that 6, with the 3 freshmen in the fall and then the 3 that we added in the spring felt more traditional, where we had them on visits. We were able to go recruit them and watch them. So really excited. Think we got a lot better, and we'll bring everybody here at the beginning of June for summer school and just work on getting better.
I know you said this is as set as it can be anymore. This is a new recruiting kind of era, and fans aren't used to it. What are some deadlines and maybe some benchmarks over the summer that we should look for? Is mid-June when a player has to have their scholarship renewed or not?
I mean, I don't even know the date. I'm more just being as negative as possible. That's something wacky. You never know what might happen, but it's as set as I don't anticipate a whole lot of changes. So I don't know what that date is, to be honest with you.
But as far as you're concerned, I mean, are you still recruiting for 2020?
No. Not unless we get some crazy phone call. But no, I mean, in my mind, we're done.
Coach, when you were at Minnesota, you played against Josiah. Did you see him then, liked him?
I remember playing UMKC, and we pulled away late. I gave Josiah crap. We beat him 90-60, so I'm like, we blew you out. But it was actually a pretty challenging game for a lot of it. I remember they were tough and physical. Billy Donlin, I've known. He was an assistant in the Big Ten when I was at Minnesota. He does a great job. So I knew I was going to get a well-coached team. But to say that I remembered playing him, no, I didn't. But I remembered him after watching the film. And just tough, physical, competitor. Morris's timeline was different than Josiah's from a portal standpoint and all that. But those were our 2 top targets. They were the ones. And you never know with bringing in guys and visits and so on, but we got the guys we wanted, which was great.
How are you guys, from a coach's standpoint, how are you handling NIL? I know both of those recruits have some NIL opportunities already in place, so I'm curious, at what stage do you talk with the collective and say, these are our targets?
I don't talk to the collective. I don't talk to anybody about that stuff. I kind of, because it is a new era or whatever you want to say of recruiting, and it's totally different. And it's kind of adapt or die, right, with everything. But I don't get involved in any of that. I don't tell anybody any of that stuff. What I do when I recruit these kids is it really hasn't changed a whole lot. And certainly the more opportunities locally that this community can provide, it's going to impact our program. I was concerned when there was all this talk about NIL. I don't know if it had that term, but when I was in Minnesota, I was really concerned because a Gopher basketball player is not going to get the same opportunities as Kirk Cousins, Karl Anthony Towns. Like, we are the pro sports from a basketball standpoint team. And so as much as Albuquerque can continue to provide for guys like on our team, it's just going to help everything. So from a recruiting standpoint, we didn't do anything different than what we've always done.
I know at some point the NIL has to verify that these guys are actually going to sign and all that. Is there a liaison like in the athletic department that they're supposed to be going through? And I don't ask because I'm trying to.
The players?
No, well, the players or the collective.
Yeah, I think the collective meets with our athletic department, and I think with Eddie and Dave and all those. I think as much transparency as possible for everybody is very important. We're all trying to figure it out. I think there's a lot of complaining about the NIL, and honestly, I think it's we just want to all be on the same page. And I know that the NCAA's world was rocked when Supreme Court ruled against it. So now it's just a matter of everybody being on the same page of what the rules are, because it's so great and it's different state to state. That's the major problem, because it feels like there's no rules with a lot of this, and we all gotta get on the same page.
Are you confident that recent talk from a few ADs that they were going to rein in and start enforcing rules? Are you confident that's going to actually change anything for next recruiting cycle, or is this?
I think it's all gonna settle in, right? I think the shock factor of players getting paid, and there's a lot of people. We all saw the Miami thing, right? Everybody differs about what the rules are and so on. I think it's going to be very, very challenging for the NCAA to, I don't want to say enforce, but I mean, it's basically they've opened the floodgates. I do think it'll settle in a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's three things that have kind of consecutively happened that have drastically changed college basketball, just in my own world, is pandemic, then the one-time transfer rule, and then the NIL. And it all happened at once. But it just is what it is. And I think the benefit of being at a place like Albuquerque, where there's great opportunities locally for these guys, more power to them.
Last one, just since it's on this topic, then I'll
You
shut up,
were
guys.
dominating this press conference.
What do you tell the returning players? I mean, there's an overvalue of transfers right now in the NIL world. What do you tell a couple returning?
I tell them all the same thing. And I told all of them last year, because it was kind of like, I don't know when exactly it happened, but the date-wise, but guys, you come to a place like New Mexico because you're the only show in town as it pertains to college basketball. And basketball, really. And the better you are, people are going to want to give you opportunities. They're not going to want to pay guys who aren't good at basketball. Reality, they're not going to provide opportunities for guys who they're not. So as good as you can be is going to open up doors for you locally. How you represent yourself, whether it's when you're meeting with the media or you're in front of a camera, all those things opens up doors. It's the real world. So I try to explain to them as much as possible what I deal with on a daily basis, because I get paid, and taxes and being on time, and if you're asked to represent a company or you're asked to be a social media ambassador or whatever, how do you handle business? Because at the end of the day, people are going to stop calling. People are not going to ask you to do things if you don't handle yourself the right way. You may not want to do that. You may feel as if what they provide scholarship-wise is enough for you, and you just want to focus on basketball. That's fine too. So I just try to tell them about what I deal with, because when you're young, you don't people say well, I don't really want to do that. And I explain to them the things that I do in my job that I don't want to do, like be at a press conference talking. No, just kidding. But there's a lot that we all do in job. And I think they'll start to see that when they start getting paid. There's things you don't want to do, but if you don't do it, you're not going to get paid.
Coach, have you sat back and thought about a rotation now that you've got some depth? And
I mean, you do, but it almost always changes. Knock on wood, you don't have serious injuries. You just don't know until everybody really gets here. And even the summer is as low stress of a situation. Everybody's loving the coach, and because playing time hasn't been given out, and it all changes late fall there. So I try to keep an open mind. And, honestly, I'm excited to get these guys here for the 8 weeks, but I've been doing it long enough to where you don't want to wear them out either. You want them chomping at the bit for November 7th or whatever that date is that we open up. But you also want to get them better and get them acclimated as well.
So along those lines, too, you've added some players. I know you're not going to know until you get them in here, but talk about taking that next step. Realistically, how big of a step do you want your returning guys to make, and just the program itself this next year, too?
Yeah, I mean, when you take over a team that won 6 games, it's a major rebuild. But you can be somewhat tempted that this thing can happen quicker because of transfers and because of the one-time transfer. Before, with no one-time transfer deal and transfer sitting out, if Jalen sat out and Mash sat out and Josiah and Morris, I would have said we're a long way away. So I don't know how close we are to where we all want to be. I really don't. But I think we really improved the roster. I think we've got key pieces back. I mean, you look at a backcourt of Mash and House. That's one of the best, I think, in the Mountain West. You look at Donovan Dent. A lot of people have talked about how great of a year he had, as well to go with Quentin and Braden. So I feel good about it. But, that's a necessary part in recruiting, which I thought we did a great job of. But now we got to build it, and we got to, continue to build off. I thought year one was a good first year. I really do. Do I want to win 13 games? No. But with all that we inherited, I thought there were a lot of positives to build off of.
Coach, along those lines, with these guys coming in and some of the guys, the positions they had to play just out of necessity, are there one or two of the returners that you look at that you feel like can really benefit the most in terms of being able to narrow that focus with some of the new additions?
Well, I think the competition's going to be great, and that's the best thing for any of these guys. Jalen House has a bad day of practice. Donovan Dent is going to push him and make him better. And I think every position is going to be pushed, and that's the key to building a program is you have some healthy competition within your locker room. And we just didn't have that at every spot last year, and it was just hard. I mean, it just feels like we're going to have that more. It's not going to be perfect, but everybody's going to get. I think they're going to be put on notice, and in a good way. And so there's not one guy. I think all of them are going to get better. What I really, really like is from top to bottom, these guys love to play basketball, and that's what we're trying to add. We're trying to add gym rats.
Can Josiah play the 5?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he's a 4-5. It's just like Jay. Like, Jay didn't love it, but he scored 25 points at Wyoming playing the 5 a lot of the time and a little bit of 4. I want interchangeable parts. To me, the only real set spot is maybe your point guard and maybe your center. But I think Morris can play the 4. I think they're all kind of pretty versatile in that. I think House can play the 2. There's going to be times we could play 3 guards. And it's good problems to have.
But you've always said you got to get stronger and bigger. Well, you got bigger just by the addition of these guys. Did you get stronger?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at Josiah. Josiah was on the visit with a cutoff shirt. I was like, all right, man, we get it, But it's Morris and Josiah are they're big, strong kids. Sebastian had a phenomenal spring. He's now back home, and he's going to go play for his national team, but his body looked great. I joked with him. I said, I don't need to see you in some plaza smoking cigarettes, like in Europe there. Now we need to stick to the regiment of what we're doing. But the younger bodies need to develop too, and that's going to happen in our program. Like, KJ's body, he's getting stronger. Obviously, Barima's the obvious one. They all understand. And you really don't know until you play a team like San Diego State, and you're like, okay, this team is much bigger, much stronger than us. And maybe that, turn the light on for them a little bit of, okay, what I do eat and what I do in the weight room, all that stuff matters.
I'm curious, the pandemic had an effect on recruiting, but the transfer portal, do you think maybe some of these high school kids kind of fall through the cracks? Because coaches fall in love with trying to find someone off the transfer portal. So your high school kids are one of the top rated recruiting classes in the Mountain West.
Yeah, I think every coach has to make a decision about how they want to build their team and build their roster. And I just looked at it and said, okay, we have to build from the ground up. Now, the reason why high school kids were not being recruited was we weren't allowed to go recruiting because of the rules. So high school film is not going to be as good as a college film that you watch. So I think that's why so many people took transfers during the pandemic. But I still say you look at our league, player of the year in the league was David Roddy, right? High school kid. Orlando Ron. We looked at it last night. We had dinner as a staff. I think all 5 kids on the first team, except for it was Matt Bradley, 4 of the 5 were high school kids. And then there was, the Shavers of the world, and Jalen and Mash were transfers, and the Boise kids were transfers. So I don't think there's a set thing. I do think the foundation needs to be from the ground up, with guys like Braden and Quentin and Donovan and, even Barimas and Sebastians and then you kind of supplement them. But I don't want to turn a roster over every single year. I think that's too hard to build a culture.
With the addition of Mac to the roster, obviously you're in a rebuild, so you want the best players out there in the country. But for you, is it important to keep talent like that here at home?
It is, yeah. I mean, when I got here and talking to Jordan and Clay, it's important. It's important to them. I've never been a part of a job where, and I see it all the time, there's more Lobo stickers and license plates in this town than I've ever been in my life. So you just know, it doesn't matter where you are, that the Lobos are very important to the community. And when you first take over the job with the pandemic, it was hard to really get out there. But now with whether it's recruiting, bringing in a kid like Mac, who obviously was an all-state player, very, very important. He grew up loving the Lobos. Obviously, his father works here. That matters. That matters to us. So if they are good enough locally, throughout the state, we need to be all over them. Mac was a good addition there.
But Morris looks like he just, and some of the video I'm sure we've all seen, he just moves people. Physically moves people. Is that his calling card?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of a traditional big guy, where, big guys have an identity crisis. They don't want to go down low. They want to be guards, right? And I think Morris embraces that, but also can operate out in the perimeter as well. So he's good on the block. He can make free throws. Obviously we want him to get fouled. His biggest issue was foul trouble defensively. He's got to stay out of foul trouble, but very, very excited about him.
What does Dave bring to the staff for the Lobos?
Dave's been great. Obviously Dan moving on, which we all know, and I really enjoyed my time working with Dave for whatever it was, a month or whatever during the transition, and I wanted to keep him. Financially, we just couldn't pull it off. So when Dan left, was leaving, I reached out to Dave, and I need, for me, somebody who sees the big picture. I think assistants, that's something they're just not used to because they haven't been head coaches, but they get in their own little lane of maybe their recruits or maybe their players that I give them that they're in charge of, and they don't go to work every day with that head coach's mindset. It's not their fault. They don't know what they don't know. I didn't do it when I was an assistant, but I've told Dave over and over again I need you to tell me the bad, tell me the good. Sometimes we're doing something good. Tell me, hey, you really like this or you don't like this. So very, very fortunate to have a guy like Dave available. His wife Kelly's great as well. So he's just got I've never met somebody who everybody likes as much as Dave. So he's a great addition to our staff.
Will you see you running the Princeton offense in a matchup zone?
Absolutely not. No, I don't. There's Princeton elements that actually we run that are, matchup zone wise, and we've talked a lot about it. There are things offensively I know Air Force does it, but there's a lot of things I like about it. Now, will I be all in on it? I don't know. Colorado State had one of the best offenses in the league, and they do a lot of that stuff as well. So I'll certainly be picking his brain, this summer and this fall with all that stuff.
Schedule close?
Close, yes. So we're working on completing the MTE and one more game, but we're close. So hopefully next week or two, 3.
But you mentioned you probably weren't going to have camps, and then we saw on Twitter that you are going to have camps.
Yeah, so it's probably, year one, you got so many things going on. And then with COVID, I just didn't know how long the state would be masks and all that stuff. So we got kind of a late jump on it. So we'll be way more organized with it all in the future. And we'll build it just like we're building this program. But we're going to do a day camp on June 27th to the 30th. And I think for me, it's not about making money. For me, it's about getting the community back involved. I've met so many people who've said, "Oh, I used to go to so-and-so's camp, back in the day." And, this whole community is kind of coming out of COVID. And we want to have the best camp we can, and then Bradbury's going to do a boys and girls team camp. I told him I'm taking that from you next year, so enjoy it while you can. But we'll get a team camp as well next year. So a little bit of it was COVID and year one and just trying to figure all that out. But excited about that and encourage anyone locally to send their kids here. It would be a great experience for them.
Can you just tell us about? Did you check all the boxes? You said you got who you wanted, but now when you look at your roster, do you check all the boxes of what you think you need to compete at a high level?
Well, I think to get to where we want to get to, it takes time, and nobody wants that. It takes consistency all across the board, whether it's your locker room, whether it's your staff, whether it's your administration. You cannot get to where we want to get to with firing coaches every 4 years. That is not a plea to not fire me in 3 years. That's not the point. But every time you fire a coach or a new AD shifts or a president, you're getting deeper and deeper into the hole. It's just the reality of it. Every coach, if you look at, for the most part, probably Arizona may have been the exception of the rule where coach gets fired and everybody stays. In just the world that we're living in, there's so much roster turnover and you're just starting from the ground up. So it just takes time. I feel really good about the recruiting that we've done. I feel really good about the guys coming back. But every year, it takes multiple recruiting classes to get to where we're really trying to get to. If you look at who won the league last year is Boise State, right? Leon's been there for 12 years. I think Colorado State was second. Do you know? Right? So Colorado State was second. Those were guys. David Roddy grew in the program. Stevens grew in the program. So I'm excited about it. But honestly, and people hate to say it, I used to give PJ Fleck, the football coach at Minnesota, crap because he used to call year one, year zero. But he's right. I feel like just now we're starting. So how it translates to winning games, I don't know. But I feel really, really good that we're moving in the right direction.
We don't know a lot about the freshmen, but did Dent improve? Is he better than you thought maybe he was?
Well, the schedule allowed for when the season was over, I was able to get to his last game. Quentin was done and Braden was done. But he's the one I've seen most recently because they were still alive in the state tournament. And I was extremely impressed. He is a competitor. You can tell he values winning. He comes from a program that I think they lost one game this year, and he's well coached. Phenomenal passer. He's different than Jamal and he's different than Jalen, and that's where I do envision I can play them together. Great layup maker. So, knock on wood, he stays healthy, and Quentin and Braden do as well. I think we have a terrific freshman class.